Hey, Ayman, it's really awesome to have you here today on the Building a Better World podcast. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Ayman is the CEO and co-founder of the social network VERO, and they are building an amazing platform for creators. And I'm really passionate about a lot of the values that you are really promoting here and building into the application, but you believe in general. So really excited to have you on. Would love to hear maybe about your background and kind of what got you passionate about this cause, and tell us a little bit more about kind of what you believe in as it relates to social networking.
Sure. Yeah. It's an exciting journey that we're on. It's been a few years that we're building the social network with an idea of that the social network, the real social network, is the most powerful, um, just organic connection that we have in the real world. And it got us, I keep saying it got us out of the caves because we can't do things alone. Like as human beings, we rely on each other a lot. We need each other. Because we're here for a short period of time, in the grand scheme of things, we need for people who learn things to pass those learnings on to other people. And if we think about ourselves as that collective, just outside of ourselves, this from a meta standpoint of how we need each other to propel into the future and build off of experiences. You think of the social network that exists in the real world as really the most powerful gift and the most powerful asset and tool that we could possibly create ourselves. And so having technology be able to bridge space and time, where I get to talk to you I'm in Dubai. I don't know where you are right now,
In
but
Miami right now.
Miami, we're able to bridge space and time. I don't need to get on a plane. I don't need to trek across the world. So we're saving all of that effort, and yet here we are connecting as human beings and using technology to do that. And so our objective is to use technology to enhance the real world social network as opposed to getting in the way of it. And we do that really by not doing so many things that we could do, which is to, we don't try to hijack this willingness to connect by having something get in the way of that and choosing what we get to see and what we don't get to see and what will keep us engaged, and having, hijacking that willingness and that predisposition to want to share and connect, and taking it in the way of, well, just keeping us online for as long as possible, using these devices so that we can show ads. I don't have a problem with ads being informative. It's what we as a platform would need to know about our users and need to be able to manipulate their behavior to get them to see those ads. That's the problem that I have personally, and we as a group have, against the attention economy in general. So we're trying to build a social network that enhances the social network in the real world and connect people across the world, give them opportunity to learn from each other, connect with each other, be inspired, and just grow as individuals and pass things on in their own experiences to other people.
Yeah, wow, that's amazing. I love how you kind of clarified that vision. I think you're right that ultimately we're all, really striving for this connection, and it shouldn't be fettered by these other kind of goals that kind of, affect how we express ourselves. I remember, I think you may have said this on another interview, or I might have, kind of, I've heard this a lot of places as well, is that, on social networks, people are kind of different than they are in their normal lives or in their regular lives. What do you think about that? Like why is that? Obviously kind of, we know why that's happening in some ways, but how do you kind of reconcile that as in terms of the way that the business model works?
Yeah, it's very much tied to the tool. The tool starts to manipulate the person using it, and it's really interesting to see because it's feeding on just basic human behavior that may already be there, or it's encouraging a certain behavior because of the outcome that is either being promised indirectly, or you see other people gaining quote unquote success, whatever that means, and then mimicking that behavior. And if you think about it, if you give everybody a stage, then everybody's going to perform. And you put a microphone in front of people, they'll say something, even though they had no desire or even thought before that of of um, of that behavior. And I always, so the Matrix plays a big role in my thinking, the movie, and I don't know if a lot of people would geek out on just all the details that are put in, and you think about Neo being in the Matrix and then consuming a cookie or consuming any kind of food, and it potentially reprograms them, reprograms him. And in our case, we are affected by the tools that we use. And initially, we think of them as things that don't have any negative impact on us. But over time, they do affect us and can affect us negatively if we have a tendency to, because we're social creatures and we want to connect with others, and we don't realize, but it's sort of embedded. There's some, bad ingredients, I would call them, in whatever it is that we're consuming. And human beings, we go through this cycle quite often. And I compare our digital consumption with our with food, the food that we eat, and over time, how conscious we become about the ingredients that are inside our food. And even we go back to how was that, if you eat meat, or if you consume, even if you're just a vegetarian, or as far as being a vegan, if you start to look at the ingredients and the process in which that food is prepared, you can see that you can make certain decisions that can better your health, how long you get to live, all of these things. And so I believe that people are becoming more and more aware that apps and how they're designed, and software and services, whatever, in whichever form that they present themselves, they are a kind of consumption, because you consume them with your brain. You don't consume them with your digestive tract. You're consuming them with your thoughts, with your, what you start to realize, the kind of mood that you're in after you've consumed something, and what kind of behavior it triggers. And so if there's an encouragement to get up and dance to music and do this kind of stuff, then you're going to do it because you see other people doing it and they're reaching kind of success. And it's really sort of the boiling of the frog. You don't realize it's happening to you. It's happening in very small quantities. And we're up against, we were talking about the social dilemma before we started the interview. You're up against these machines that we're seeing just how capable they are in beating us without us even knowing that we're in a game, for that matter. And so what we're very conscious of is making sure that we don't put any ingredients into our app, into VERO, that may inadvertently change the behavior of people. People can have an addictive personality, and so we can't stop somebody from opening up the app. We can warn them, we can do all of that. And we actually were the first app to introduce time spent in the app that you can turn on, and you can just self-regulate. We didn't want to put up warnings and make you feel bad. We just wanted you to be aware of what's going on, and so you could make your own decisions. We were the first software to do that. Like, it wasn't available in iOS nor Android nor any other app. And we did it as a statement to say we're serious about what we're talking about. We don't want to put things into the app that manipulate your behavior, and we're ready to put in what would seem to be and in non-intuitive features like letting you know how long you've spent for you not to spend time in the app. We're not tracking how much time you're spending in the app. We're not doing any of that on our side. We're giving you the tool in your own device that's sitting in your device to let you know how much time you're spending so that you can make an informed decision.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's great. And very, very important because, as we're becoming more mindful, as you said, about, whether it's what you're eating or, how you spend your time during the day, um, how much time you're even taking to unplug or meditate or exercise.
Right.
And all of this digital kind of infrastructure information, everything around us that's digital that we're consuming is similarly affecting us. So I think that analogy is a very powerful one from the Matrix, as you mentioned. I think that as we are consuming or interacting with these digital mediums, we are changing. How do you think we are changing in the last 10, 20 years of and you see kids now growing up on this stuff? What's your thoughts around where are we heading, and whether that's a new kind of way that we'd interact with this stuff that as VERO is building, or the engagement models, the attention economy models? Is there some kind of baseline kind of change that we're incorporating in ourselves?
Yeah, I think so. There are a few things that I'm sort of I mean, I was born in 78, and so I consider myself a kind of, my conscious, or I became mostly aware and lived through the 90s. So going from that to where we are today, it's pre-internet and then post-internet. So I'm still, I'm part of that generation that straddles both sides of that invention and that creation into our lives. And what I've noticed just generally, I think we have more ADD than we've ever had. I think just as a species, because we have so many things calling for our attention,
Yeah.
and they're being dripped into our lives in these very, very small, not even bite sizes, even smaller than bite sizes, drips that we get left, right, and center. And so it prevents us from being able to live in the moment as much, and seek out non-digital experiences. I see us much more tied to obviously our devices. We see that generally, people just looking, sitting at a dinner table and everybody's looking at their devices, or being out in these wonderful places and not being able to focus on that. And so if we watch these shows where people had to, you couldn't call somebody when they were in their car, you had to wait until they showed up at their home, or at work, and just remembering what that was like and how much slower things seemed than they are today. So with that comes an impatience and a wanting for things instantly, and not being able to be satisfied with anything that requires you to wait. I see that even with our users, and God bless our support staff for how they interact with users, and seemingly something that it'll get solved. Somebody's verification will go through, or whatever. But from the moment that they've submitted to the moment that they get it, just the anxiety and the feverish want from that moment to actually getting satisfied, and then post that everything's fine, it goes back to quiet. Just the inability for people, or people getting used to having things instantly given to them is really interesting as a just sort of social experiment, social indicators. And then unfortunately, the propensity for people to believe things that they see online without questioning them,
Yeah.
um, spreading things quickly, and then that becoming truth. And back in the day, sort of talking about the history of knowledge and how knowledge was gathered in libraries in the middle of nowhere, where you had to trek for days or weeks or months to get to that library. And somebody who's really into knowledge, would go and write things down, but also read things. And then there'd be scholars, checking things. Like, just the slowness factor, which had its value, has sort of really disappeared. And now we look at anything with a search becomes a source of knowledge.
Yeah.
It's a shame. I don't want to call it, I won't even go down the path of calling it dangerous and bad for society. I just call it a shame, because the bar has been brought down a lot
Yeah.
versus, the past. And on the one hand, it's exciting that you have access to so much knowledge, so much information, so much opinion, information, knowledge, all kind of lumped into one. But giving it search automatically makes it a source of knowledge, irrespective of what the source is behind that information. So I look at all of these things, and I know we'll come out of it. I know we'll come out the other end. Chat GPT, for example, may get us there faster, or the opposite, and
Yeah.
we'll reject it. But I always think of the sort of society and human beings in general as a collective, okay, as a species. We have an immune system similar to the human body at just a micro level. So if you try to attach an organ, implant an organ, or attach even somebody else's, let's say, somebody has their finger cut off, and you're putting in a new finger from somebody else, or grown in a lab, or whatever, okay, something that isn't from the person, the body has to accept it, and it automatically will reject it if it's a foreign thing that isn't supposed to be there, or it isn't recognized, or is bad for it.
Yeah.
So I think of the society and people that we will eventually reject what isn't good for us, that has a threat to our survival, to our best interests. But things are changing so quickly, we're having trouble catching up. And so we're not able to process the things correctly. So I see us moving down a path where eventually, I know, we'll reject the things that aren't good for us. We'll accept the things that are good for us, but it'll take us time. Sorry for the long-winded answer, but yeah, it's an interesting subject.
No, I love very comprehensive answers, and just kind of going deep into this, because it's such an important topic, and you've thought about it for a long time. So I appreciate you going into detail on this, because I think you brought it up with these large language models and GPT and what's coming from all of that. It's coming so quickly that it's going to be a real challenge to know what's real and what's fake. I think even this weekend there was a controversy with a song that was created by AI that got really popular, and what are the rights to some content. And I know you're a photographer as well. I'd love to hear more about your passion for being a creator. But some of those things are really things that in terms of the speed of innovation, how do we kind of maintain the integrity of the content we're creating, and how do we want to go, like, do we want to open it up? I don't know if you saw the announcement. I think I read it on the news this morning, read it on a post, that Grimes opened up her music library to allow creators to, I think, use AI and share royalties. And so we're moving into a world where, you know, we're going to have a lot more content creation, and some of those things are going to be very positive, potentially for creators. And also in a world where, you know, you might not have total control over your IP, and maybe that could be a negative depending on how you kind of play this out. What do you think about that in terms of creators and rights? And I know that's very important for you to give creators the opportunity to build their craft and to grow their businesses.
Yeah, I'm all for somebody taking something by the reins and deciding for themselves consciously that they want to use something, or not just to be different, but to embrace something new. And it's up to them to decide that, and it's up to others to decide. And we should respect others that decide they don't want to go down that path. I remember, you know, these things become blips in history that that kind of get lost and forgotten. But I remember, for example, Metallica not being on any platform whatsoever, whether streaming or iTunes or anything. And I'm a huge Metallica fan.
Me too.
And honestly, I wanted their music to be on these platforms, but at the same time, I could understand why they didn't want it to be on the platforms.
Yeah.
So it's really a question of you know, what kind of experience you want your fans to have, what kind of position do you want to take in the creator ecosystem, if you don't want to call it the creator economy. You have, you know, you have others like Radiohead who decided to give away their music for free, for example. You know, at one point you could download their music. So it's really about you having control and choice on how things play out. And you can decide to hold back as long as you want to see how things, you know, ultimately evolve. And you do it in a moment of calm, as opposed to a moment of just wanting to jump on board everything. You know, something that I think of when, you know, you've got technologies that people jump all over all of a sudden, whether it's VR, whether it's AR, and sort of before its time. Whereas now you're starting to see things in a much clearer way on how you can use them, as opposed to thinking it's the be all end all of all things. I like it when, you know, people take a step back and go for quality versus quantity in things. And you have things that just evolve naturally. And if you give it enough time, you'll see where people tend to, you know, tend to move towards. If you think of the evolution of TV or the creation of content, initially, movies were movies, and, you know, big blockbuster, or, you know, just big budgets being spent on movies. And then you had the Blair Witch Project that came out, and all of a sudden it was this unlock in everybody's minds, like, oh my God, you could have just this huge hit with a very small budget. And you then had reality TV, like, do you remember The Real World, right? I mean,
Yep.
when that came out, that totally changed everybody's perception of how TV could be made. And so you had reality TV, and everything was about reality TV at one point. Every single show was about reality TV. If you were making a TV show, you were part of the past, you weren't thinking about the future, and everybody was just trying to come up with every kind of idea for a reality TV show, and that's all that was on TV.
Yeah.
And then House of Cards. You know, you fast forward, Netflix basically decided, you know what? TV is going to be about this. And that was the gamble that they went after. And it spurred a new idea, which was basically quality over quantity, back to quality, back to investing in ideas and great storytelling. And now that's all we get on TV. We get, like, we live in an age where TV is almost better than movies. How is that possible? And we have access to this. And it's really this decision, and I hope we don't go back, where this decision of quality versus quantity. And so, again, coming back to sort of your question about ChatGPT, about basically the acceptance and moving fast with new technology, I would just encourage people to think about that quality experience. What is it that they're getting? There are people who are going to have a propensity to want to do just these PR moments, which may be thought through, and I don't want to belittle anybody's decisions, but because as long as you're doing it consciously and you know what you're getting yourself into, or you're willing to accept whatever the results are, I much prefer that than somebody just sort of going with it because it's the new thing, we got to do it. I would just encourage, just think things through, have some good advisors around you, take a look at what other people are doing, learn from those things, exchange ideas, exchange experiences, and accept technology, but have it work for you as opposed to you working for it.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I think this kind of opens the way. And we talked earlier, we'd hung out in Dubai recently at a Web3 event. And, this opens the way, I think, for Web3 and, the utilization of potentially digital assets to, help creators, go direct with their customers, to be able to have a community become a stakeholder, and directly connect with their with the creator themselves, and to be able to generate even other potential products. What's your thought on Web3, and how do you think about that as it relates to VERO and, with SuperWorld? I think there's a lot of things that we can do together, because I love the passion and the mission that you're on. And that's a very similar mission. So love to hear kind of your thoughts on Web3 and how it fits into that mission.
Yeah, absolutely. What I love about Web3 is what it stands for. I think so my background is computer science, and I was a programmer when I was first starting, and then created some technology companies, and I can't help but think like an engineer and think about tech, and I love consumer tech, and I've always wanted to be in consumer tech. My dream is that I create something that people that I'd be randomly walking down the street or in a mall or whatever, and seeing somebody use something that I helped create. That's my dream. That's my ultimate goal. And that obviously that however I got there doesn't compromise my principles and the things that I'm trying to build and build off of. And so when I look at something like Web3, I immediately look to see what is behind it, what fascinates us, and try not to lose sight of what that is. And I think that Web3, what it does is it encourages transparency, it encourages inclusivity, as opposed to something that's exclusive and that's really hard to get into and that's opaque and this kind of thing. I don't think that everything gets built off of Web3. I know that there's a tendency to want to do that. Everything starts to look like, we have a tendency to want to turn everything into a hammer, which then turns everything into a nail. And that isn't how it works. I think you want to use the right tools in the right moment. And Web3, we're definitely integrating Web3 into VERO in different ways. But what we're mostly interested in is, as you said, is how do you create stakeholders out of your community, whether it's an app or it's a creator? How do you do it? And my background is old school. I always think about how do you make things that don't overpromise because there are legal issues that get in the way. You know, how do you deal with things in a way that actually deliver what people expect? And you look at all of the surge in interest in at the time, you know, unfortunately we have to say this, at the time when NFTs took off and then came back down, it's because people wanted to have you know, a stake, and second, they wanted to support their creators or the things that they believed in. So we're looking at ways to actually deliver that, you know, in a way that's a win-win for both sides, while building off of the transparency part that Web3 brings perfectly. That's the beautiful thing, is that in a world where you have transparency, it's no longer a question about a person, but rather the system that you know, the person that's building a platform. It's more about the platform that they're building, and your ability to look at something and say, hey, you don't need to, don't worry about Ayman, don't worry about, you know, this person or that person. Just look at what it is that we're building and who we're building it for. And you can then start to see how something is built, gives you a sense of the goal behind it. We're trying to build a community first platform that what that means is it's putting the community first, putting their interests first, putting how the longevity of the platform and the community, and not trying to rush things in a way that's only about fastest to profitability, fastest to biggest possible, because you can do that. It can be all built on air and then it all comes crashing down. We're not interested in that. I'm interested as much in the people that are building it, the people that are using it, the people that are building it have families behind them. So how do I build something that's sustainable for them? You know, if we've got 50 people working on it, we've probably then got at least 250 people that at least relying on what it is that we're doing. That's a lot of people on my, you know, my shoulders, our shoulders, and the decisions that we're making. So, you know, that's really what I look at Web3 is, the promise of all of that embodied in a technology that's very basic. All it is just everything that you do can be seen, can be audited, can be checked. You can trust and verify. It's a wonderful thing. So how do we use that? More important than anything else. I don't think of NFTs. I don't think of blockchain, etc. I think of, if Pandora's box has been opened with people where they expect transparency, how can we build off of that? And how can we take this to a new level that creates a win-win for everybody, and is all legal and is all checked, and everybody gets in and gets what they expect?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And do you think that, you know, as we think of business models, I know, you know, many of the platforms are now incorporating some paid aspects of their business, you know, whether it's paying for a verification check mark, or other kind of premium features. What's your thought on that? I know it doesn't hit the, you know, hit the mark where it should be, but, you know, would love to hear your thoughts on how that, I think kind of, you know, definitely confirms a lot of the things that you've been saying for years about how we've been the product, and we need to kind of, you know, take control as creators and have more control over the content. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on what's happening now in the industry. Are people kind of understanding more about how, you know, potentially these business models need to transform a bit?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we'll look back at this age as quite, you know, we'll look back and wonder how on earth we accepted to be the product for all of these platforms that, you know, ultimately our attention is being sold out to third parties. And you know, just similarly to us looking back at whatever we were consuming in the 80s in terms of, you know, quality of the food that we would eat, or the ingredients that weren't asking. I mean, I think Twinkies have been, completely, they stopped making them. We don't
I ate a
even.
lot of Twinkies in the 80s for sure.
Yeah, right, exactly. So, so I think the way, yeah, absolutely. I I look at Twitter, for example, and Elon Musk, one of the smartest people on the planet, taking that over and looking at the business model and going, oh my God, we need to introduce subscription, which is something that we said would be our business model from day one. And I'm sure anybody who's listening to this who knows about VERO and in the past of VERO, thinks, yeah, you've been talking about subscription, but you haven't turned it on. Well, there's a reason for that. And you'll know that reason when we announce things that we'll be announcing this year, because I'm just somebody who constantly looks for a win-win. And what I saw turning on subscription would serve us very much in an imbalanced way versus our customers, our users. And I basically put a challenge both to myself and to the team where, I said from day one, we need to treat our users as our customers, irrespective of whether they're paying or not. We need to think and be used to dealing with our platform as a subscriber platform, not as a user platform where all we care about is numbers. So an analogy would be that you're trying to create a scene, you're trying to create a party or some kind of an event, and all you are doing is sitting at the door, doing whatever it is that you can to get people through the door. You don't care what they do inside. You don't care what kind of experience that they have. You don't care if they're falling over, if they're hurting themselves, if they're having a bad experience, or if they're having a great experience, but it's bad for them. All you care about is, can you be at the door and can you get enough people in? And so what we've done as a team is get used to dealing with people on a personal level. I'll sometimes jump on a customer. I'll find out about somebody has a question, has a concern, has feedback, didn't have a good experience. I'll get on a call and do a Zoom call with them and make sure that they feel heard, that we try to act on what it is that they're talking about if we can. If it's a low-hanging fruit, why not? And so when we think about our business model defines the culture of our app. It defines the culture of the community that we're building, the DNA of everything that we're doing. We're not thinking about putting in some feature that increases engagement for the sake of engagement. We look at, are people satisfied? Are they coming back because they're having a good experience? Are they making friends? Are they learning from each other? Are they connecting with other people? Are they seeing that their content is, if it's good, it's being recognized? And what kind of features can we create that further recognizes those people? Very important. The people behind the content and not the content itself. I heard Maddie Hapuya is a great content creator on YouTube, and he was saying there's a tendency for apps to want to connect users to content as opposed to users to creators. And I want to be about connecting people. And so whether it's users to other creators or users with other users with similar interests, whatever it is, ultimately it's about a person-to-person connection that I care about the most. And so features are driven by that. We have a ton of features that are coming out. We're building stuff left, right, and center. It seems like we're taking forever because we're a small team. It's how we can sustain ourselves by being small and not too big. We don't want to be in a mode of growing and then laying people off. That's just something I can't deal with as a person. So, we try to keep the team tight and small. It just means that things take us longer to build. But it's clear, it has been clear for close to a decade now while we've been building this, that the way to go forward is a subscription model because it keeps us honest. it keeps us, focused on our users who are our customers. It lets them understand that it's a simple model, but it's a simple contract between us and them. You pay, you gain access, and you fund what it is that we're doing. It's the simplest thing, and we've gotten lost a bit with this whole idea that everything is free, because that's easier for the developer to give it away for free and then, go out and sell your attention to third parties. That's so much easier, or seems to be so much easier, than going down what I consider is the better path, a path that is better for us. And it's a path that I feel is more along the lines of the thinking that we deserve better. So, I think it's the ultimate win-win when you can create a platform that serves its users because they're customers, that they can feel and have an opportunity to be stakeholders in that. So throwing in the Web3 portion, which we'll announce, sometime later this year.
Awesome.
That to me is the ultimate path. Now, whether they accept to use it, whether they think it's, does all the things that it needs to do, that's up to them. But we would have done our job, which is, to give it the best chance it has to being a true alternative to everything that's out there, built from the ground up with better ingredients and a better alignment of interest between us and our customers.
That's great. No, exciting. It's very exciting. And I love how, as a creator, there's just so many different things that you can discover: intros and photos and links and books and movies and places. And, you really get to know, it's like what you said, you get to know the people that are the creators, and get to know even the relationships and things. I'd like to go a bit into your, we talked about how, this digital media and all of these different platforms and the drip. How do you disconnect? I know you're a creator. How do you, in your personal life, what are things that you use to, kind of gain balance and empower you and inspire you? Love to hear kind of what you do in your personal life as a creator, or in your family, et cetera. What would you do to kind of keep yourself energized?
Well, I luckily I have a great and very supportive family, all the way from my wife to my kids. They understand what it is that I'm doing. They understand the sacrifice that it takes, and they're sacrificing, as much as I am. I am, on the one hand, putting in large sums of money, which is ours. I don't consider it to be mine. I consider it to be ours. And they understand that, and I involve them in that understanding. It isn't just, dad's in his office doing stuff and they don't know what the heck is going on. So they understand the partnerships that I'm trying to forge, the work that I'm trying to do. And that is, I get a lot of strength from that. I get a lot of strength in their understanding and their questions and their curiosity, and them being aware of what it is that I'm doing. But also the team, we stand together, which is really important. My extended family is my VERO family, who are the people that are helping me build this and dealing with things on a daily basis. And it extends all the way out to the users. I mean, the kind of things that I see coming from users of the platform, reaching out to me personally or reaching out to the team, that means a lot. And I get a lot of strength and a lot of inspiration from that. And there are the small things that one can do on a daily basis. When I have time, I use photography as my way of unplugging I have a I have an M11, so it even further puts you in the moment because you can't be thinking about anything else when you're taking a shot with a manual focus lens. It's actually impossible. It's actually tied to a lot of uh, like there are therapies, methodologies that allow you to come out of, everything from depression or ADD or all of these things by actually using a manual focus camera. I know it sounds quite interesting, but if you can, if you do need to disconnect, I highly recommend that. It doesn't matter if you're a good photographer or not, doesn't matter. Like just experiencing things. I take my camera everywhere I go, irrespective. If I'm going anywhere out of the house, I carry a camera with me because it can take pictures where back home, like if it's sitting on a shelf, it's not gonna take a picture by itself. So I take it with me whether I think I'm gonna get a shot or not, or I'm going anywhere interesting, it doesn't matter. I just stay in that discipline. And you know, and lastly, I mean, a way I disconnect, or lastly, a couple of ways is I try to take care of my health through fitness. So as much as possible, I try to disconnect there, even though I do have my phone with me and I am a lot of times working between sets. Um, and then there's gaming. I'm a bit of a gamer. So I do play games. I'm looking forward to Zelda coming out. Zelda Breath of the Wild 2 is coming out on the 12th of May. So the kids and I are waiting for that. So it's really a mixed bag of things. But what I would say to people who are building anything, who have a big challenge in front of them, whatever it may be, whether it's wanting to improve your fitness, any kind of goal that you have, don't rely on always being in the mood for it. Like that's something that I think we fall into a habit of, you know, uh, I'm not in the mood, so I don't do. You got to do regardless of your mood. You got to do regardless of the circumstances. You could be going through hell, but other people are relying on you. You got to just show up. You got to show up. Got to show up, get something done. Just turn that you know that wheel even an inch. It counts every single day. And I've learned that over the years, because you do fall into that thing of just saying, you know what, I'm just not feeling it right now. And there'll be days it's okay if what it takes is for you to be creative and you have to deal with certain other things, or you're going through something and you're not able to be creative. Take whatever energy that you can muster and put it into something else. Whether it's operations or, just problem solving or helping other people with whatever problems that they're dealing with. As the leader of this enterprise, of this organization, I sort of, I have a responsibility that regardless of what I'm going through, I need to be there for other people because they need my guidance, they need my direction, and I'm happy to give it. And the more you can create a family environment where people, they really believe in something together and they want to build something together, and we have a shared goal, it just makes that, ability to jump in no matter what's going on in your personal life, all the more easier, and I would encourage that. And I can talk quite a lot about that particular thing. So I'm very blessed to be doing what it is that I'm doing. I feel very blessed to be in a position where I can afford to give the team time to do things correctly, because we are probably the only company right now working towards building a sustainable alternative social network that mimics the real world social network, which is the most important thing, I think. In this world, we're seeing how important what it is that we're doing is. People are willing to spend billions to solve this problem, personal billions. Luckily, I haven't had to do that, but it's certainly, a big sacrifice on all fronts. And I believe in what it is that we're doing and the importance of what we're doing.
I love that. So inspiring and so important. for all of us as technology is advancing, and we definitely need to prioritize different areas of our life, that I think having the kind of vision that you do and bringing the community and your team around you in that vision, it's amazing that I think we got to figure out a way to kind of get more people to understand the importance of what you're working on, because because the technology is transforming so fast, as you said, that ultimately it's going to work out. Like, as you said, we can identify what's good for us. So I'm really happy that you're kind of helping to bring that to the world. So thanks for all that you're doing to build a better world. I have one final question. SuperWorld's a virtual world that's built on top of the real world, where you can buy any place in the world, and you can become a stakeholder there, and have a connection there and build things there and do things. What's your favorite place in the world? Where if you could buy a plot of virtual real estate anywhere in the world, where would you want to do that? And what would you want to build?
Yes, I'm quite partial to. I just recently moved to Dubai, and I'm enjoying it tremendously. I think that it's the most, it's one of the most forward-looking places, and the Emirates just in general pushes you to think outside of the box and think differently and think into the future. So I've definitely added it to my list of favorite places. I frequently go between Dubai and Abu Dhabi, and each one has a different different feeling, and pushes you in different ways. One lets you think big, and the other one lets you think fast and big. They each bring something different to the table, which is really awesome. But in the past, I've said quite frequently that my favorite city in the world is Paris, and my favorite country in the world is Italy.
Mm-hmm.
So in terms of places I go to, those are two of my favorites. Like, I love anywhere in Italy. You can put me anywhere in Italy and I'll love it. I speak Italian now as a result of that. And I lived a few years in Paris and find it to be a fantastic city. And I can spend as much time as anybody wants in either one of those places, and would be happy to. So anything that gets me, anything in that realm, I'd be interested in. So
awesome. Yeah. And I noticed you do take a lot of photos in all of those places. So wonderful to see your profile there on VERO. Well, thank you so much, Ayman, for being here today. Really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you for what you're doing to build a better world. Where can people find you online? What's the best way to kind of get in touch or learn more about what you're working on?
Well, the best place would be VERO. So I'm just Ayman at VERO. So vero.co/Ayman. You can find me there, and obviously download the app and interact with me. I try to get back to anybody who's got a question, if they mention me in their own post or in a comment or something. Sometimes work gets pretty busy, and I can't answer right away, but I try to as much as possible. But that's the best place to find me.
Awesome. And again, looking forward to seeing the exciting news that coming out later this year on Web3 and all the other things that you're going to be building at VERO. Thanks so much for being on the Building a Better World podcast. Looking forward to talking again soon.
Thanks for having me, man. All right.